Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. What's going on?
Wow, look at that beard.
Look at this thing. Can I turn this
Awesome.
sideways? Does that work? I can't do that, can I?
I know it turns it a little bit, but man, that's some good growth there, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been working on this since late February. I
That's
got to figure out how to set this phone
okay.
somewhere, but maybe I just have to hold it. But yeah, man, how's it going?
I can't complain. We're doing well. Everyone's healthy. Quiet house. The kids are gone. The dogs are here, so we're working out of the house for a little bit, and then I go into the office a couple hours here. But we're back in the office. So yeah, things are good in Arizona.
I hear you, man. Well, real quick before we get into the good stuff, I have to say something that you mentioned a second ago. Yes, I'm from Northwest Indiana originally. I graduated from high school up there. Was a lifelong Notre Dame fan until about 1998,
Oh,
and I moved to Alabama. Went
uh-huh.
to the University of Alabama. Roll Tide. I've been a diehard Alabama fan since 1996. I still like Notre Dame. Okay, they're just not they're not my team.
Gotcha.
Roll
So
Tide.
you're out. I mean, you guys have the program of programs out there. I don't know what grows out there or how they do it, but
Well, listen, hold on. I have to make a clarification statement here. I went to Alabama in 99 through '04. All
okay.
right. We won the SEC in 99 and we went 3-8 in 2000. My senior year, we went 4-9. So I've endured some hardship. I deserve
Yeah,
some of the success that we've had.
man, I didn't realize that they had those struggles early in the
Oh,
decade,
oh man.
2000.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a since 2007 when Saban first got here. Yeah, it's been a pretty magical ride.
Was that just a culture shift with Saban coming in, or what created the winning atmosphere? I mean, you guys are legendary. I mean, I know Bear Bryant was there, and he took that program to big heights. And then I guess they didn't do eight things for a long time. I'm not too
Yeah.
sure on that.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into Alabama football history if you'd like to. Bear Bryant died. He retired in 1983, and he died shortly thereafter. And since then, it was really rough. Alabama won a national championship in '92 when Gene Stallings, one of Bear Bryant's proteges, took over. He did get them back to the summit. They won. They beat Miami in the national championship game. They went 13-0 in 1992. That was before I was a fan. And it was just about 20 years of really kind of sporadic success, where Tennessee had beat Alabama like 7 years in a row and all this crazy stuff. Auburn had a big streak, a 6-year streak against Alabama while I was in school there, by the way. So that sucked. But since Saban took over, yeah, culture was a big part of it. I've interviewed some of the players that were on the previous regime, and yeah, culture was a big part of it. Recruiting was a big part of it. Got some big names: Julio Jones, Mark Ingram, right off the bat. Trent Richardson, right off the bat, were some big names that Alabama got in some of those first recruiting classes. AJ McCarron became a big quarterback recruit, and kind of the rest is history. It all comes down to recruiting, though, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Gene Stallings did coach the Cardinals, and
Did he?
yeah, he was out here for I don't know how many years, but I'm not going to talk about the Cardinals. I'm a diehard Bears fan, so
Me too. Yeah. No. So I'm still a Chicago sports fan. Like
okay.
I'm a Bears guy. I'm a Cubs guy. I mean,
Yep.
look at my Cubs corner back here.
Oh, love it.
I was at Game 7 of the World Series. I'm a diehard, lifelong Cubs fan. Blackhawks, Bulls. I'm a big Chicago sports fan.
Yeah, there you go. You still got that in you. That never dies, I don't think. So
No.
that's great. So yeah, thanks for joining the show. It's episode 58. I mean, it's been a fun ride. I've interviewed some of the biggest guys out in the whole country that have been on, and just like yourself, we never met. We met through social. So I appreciate you joining me today and joining everyone. Um,
Yeah.
so I love what I read about you, Brian. I mean, design the life first and then the business. Like, can you expound on that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, you gotta give credit to people who've come before me. I didn't come up with that. But I think that it's important. I think in business, it's easy to get caught up in our businesses, and it's easy to put our business first, even ahead of our family, even ahead of our, even a lot of times, the old adage of, entrepreneurs are the only people stupid enough to quit a 40-hour-a-week job for an 80-hour-a-week job just so they don't have to have a boss. And for freedom, right? We want freedom, so we want to quit our 9 to 5 and become an entrepreneur, and that sounds cool, but a lot of times in order to make the same amount of money, even a lot of times we're having to put in 80, 90, even 100-hour weeks. And that was me. And I used to wear that as a badge. Philip, I used to wear, when I got to 100 hours in a week, which I did a few times, I wore that as a badge of honor. Like, you're not going to outwork me. You're not going to out hustle me. And what that ends up doing is it creates this false sense of who you are. A lot of times you don't know who you are. You're just going and going and going and thinking that that's what you have to do, but there's a better way. And it took a lot of, like, for me, I was really hard-headed. I didn't want to listen to that for a long time. Through some personal mentors of mine, Sean McCloskey's name is one of them. Jesse Itzler is one of them. Some people who I really look up to and have really tried to learn from. That's not the way, Brian. That's not the way you should do things. You need to, we got to tweak some things. And I just didn't want to hear that for a long time. And so because of that, there have been major consequences that I've had to face in my personal life. And, coming out of that, I think that some of the big takeaways, some of the big lessons I've learned is, let's design your life first. What do you want to do? And I think a lot of people will be shocked and surprised to learn that once you actually put down on paper, which, by the way, very, very, very few people do, but once you put down on paper what it is you actually want to do and want to accomplish, and some things that maybe some lifelong dreams that you've always had. For me, my lifelong dream, I want to go to the Grand Canyon. I want to see the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, just something that simple. I mean, I know you live, fairly close to the Grand Canyon, but like, and some people who live where you live kind of take that for granted, that you're right next to one of the 7 wonders of the world, natural wonders of the world. But for me, my whole life, I've never even been out west. My whole life, I've wanted to go to the Grand Canyon. Well, I started looking into it, especially with COVID going on and how ridiculously cheap hotels are and flights are. I went and hiked the Grand Canyon, and it cost me $800.
Wow.
For a 5-day trip to Phoenix and to drive up to the Grand Canyon and hike the Grand Canyon. It cost me $800. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times we get fooled into thinking that our dream, the thing that we've always wanted to do, is going to cost all these thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, when in reality it probably won't.
Right.
It probably won't cost as much as you think it's going to cost. So why can't we put some of those things into our life, into our calendar first? Let's put some of these things that we've always wanted to do in our calendar first, and then let's put business second. If you have a business that requires you to be present for 80 hours a week, you don't have a business.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay? You have a job. You have a job that is requiring you to work for a living. You might as well just go work a 9 to 5. Right. Because there's probably some people around you who are not, they say they might be happy, but they're probably not happy. So anyway, and I don't want to speak for everybody, because that's not true certainly for everybody. There's always some outliers there, but for the most part, put your life first. Put your family first. Put the things that are most important to you first. A lot of times, I don't want to make this about God or Christianity or anything, but a lot of times we say, God's first. But we don't prove it with our time and our money and our resources. We don't prove it.
Right.
So a lot of times you can say, hey, my family's first. Well, prove it. Where are you spending the most time? In the Bible, it says where your treasure is, your heart is also. So where you're spending your time, where you're spending your resources, where you're spending your money, that's where your heart really is. So do an audit. Where are you spending your resources? Are you spending them on toys, on cars, on houses, on just crap? Or are you spending it on things that matter the most to you? So sorry, that's a long answer. But
no, I love it. So you bring up an interesting point, because we're both Midwest guys, I mean, we're hard workers just by what you're into. I mean, what surroundings are. I mean, I grew up, had to work hard, but, and I'm very self-motivated, but like that doesn't get you, I mean, there's the homeostasis of being, having the wheel spin versus like you're working 80 hours, 90 hours, because I've done that. And at the end of the day, it's not healthy. But the challenge when you're 20, 25, I guess you have more freedom then, but then when you get the family, you get other responsibilities. Are you still trying to work 80, 90 hours a week, which your brain gets so ingrained, like, let's just step back. God's got it. Like, we can't, so that's the challenge, I think, with so highly driven and motivated. Like, for years, if I'm not doing it, no one's doing it. Like, I had that attitude, and that got me very sick, like, because I had to do everything and help everyone. But like now, like, life is great. The past 2 years, I've trusted, I've set up multiple systems. So like I don't want to have a job. I want to have this freedom to go travel to Costa Rica, go travel to wherever you want to travel, and your business still runs. So that's the big change for me, at least. Brian, as far as setting up systems, like, systems are so important in our businesses. It makes everything run.
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt about it. That's the difference. You go back to the cash flow quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki, who's in your backyard, by the way.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he sits there and talks about what's the difference between being an S, being self-employed, and being a B, being on the right side of the quadrant, being a business owner. What's the difference? The difference is systems and processes. Self-employed, you own a job. Okay. E, employee, you have a job. S, self-employed, you own a job. So, but the difference between owning a job and owning a business is basically a set of systems and processes that should be able to run at least mostly without you and your presence.
And yeah, some of the younger guys do get that, the 20, 25-year-olds, because they've learned the technology part. So we do have some of those guys with us. But again, like, you just have to trust it. And it's really, no one can do it for you. But, because some people still have that mentality. Again, if I'm not doing it, no one can do it. Or my way is the best way, and no one can do it like I do it. So
yeah, for sure, it goes back to the E Myth, right? And that's everything you just described is Michael Gerber and the E Myth. Is nobody can do it as good as I can do it. And you're right, nobody can do it as good as you can do it. And if you want a true business, you're going to have to be okay with that.
That's 100%. So, I was reading up on your background. You're an author. You got into real estate in 2012, wholesale, creative finance. Your superpower, I love it, is networking and connection. Is there anything I missed about who Brian is and what you do?
I mean, that's the business side of Brian for sure. The business side of Brian is trying to be less, and the personal side of Brian is trying to be more. I think there's a lot of value in that. But I created REI Live, Real Estate Investing Live, which is a series of real estate meetup groups. Right now, we're in 5 locations throughout the Southeast. We're in Birmingham, Columbia, South Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia, Orlando, Florida, and Sarasota, Florida. So we've got a series of meetup groups, which has been tough right now because of live events. But we're still doing a lot of virtual stuff, so that's been great. We've had to learn, we've had to pivot, as a lot of people are saying. And I also created REI Coaches. We have a REI Coaches conference. We have a conference specifically for real estate coaches. If you coach or mentor, or you want to start coaching, mentoring, start a podcast, start a mastermind, we started a conference, and this is the second one. We did it last fall. We're doing it again this fall on October 15th and 16th in Birmingham, Alabama. We got some big names that are going to be here talking. You mentioned Pace Morby at the beginning of your show.
Oh yeah.
Pace was one of our speakers last year with Jamil Damji, who both flew out.
Yeah.
We've had Brent Daniels fly out to Birmingham from your neck of the woods. We had the batch skip tracing people flew out from your neck of the woods. I'm trying to think Phoenix wise. We've had a lot of folks fly out here from that area. Andy Werner
Oh,
flew out here, who's a really good buddy of mine. He spoke at our RIA last year, and he was at the coaches conference last year. So we've had some Phoenix people come this year. Tom Kroll, I'm sure you've heard of Tom Kroll. He's one of our speakers. Sean McCloskey, Greg Pinio, Steve Kavanaugh, Zach Childress.
love it.
We got a huge speaker lineup this year. Breakout sessions. We have an implementation day where we're going to actually like teach you hands-on how to build a successful coaching business from scratch. So if that's something you're interested in, you can go to reicoaches.com. Didn't mean to plug,
Oh,
make
those.
this like an infomercial, but it really and truly is. You mentioned my superpower is networking and connecting. The way this thing started is I wanted a place where people could learn how to be a coach because it really didn't exist. And there are a lot of people out there who don't think everyone should be coaching. There are a lot of people that have the kind of the mentality of, well, if you haven't been through a market cycle, you can't coach. You shouldn't be a coach. Or if you've only done one deal, or you've only done 10 deals, or you've only done 50 deals, you shouldn't coach or teach. You're not qualified to do that. I think that that's garbage. I think that we all have we first of all, we're all teachers. We all teach things that we know at some point. If you're a parent, you're a teacher, right?
Yep.
I mean, we all teach, and a lot of times, a lot of us kind of have that in us that we want to teach and coach. And even though we've only done a few deals, we still have something of value to teach someone who's never done a deal before. So anyone who's ever said that to you, oh, what qualifies you to coach? Don't listen to that person. I wanted to create an atmosphere where, you know what, I do want to teach and coach. I may have only done about 10 or 15 deals. Maybe I've only done one deal, but I would like to learn how to do this and learn it from the best people who are giving away all their secrets. And by the way, the people that are coming to speak at this thing, these are people that have never talked about this stuff before. You know, you got somebody like Tom Kroll that came last year and spoke, and we recorded it. So if you sign up for this year, you can go back and watch Tom. You can watch Jameel and Pace. You can watch all these things. These are people who are giving talks and sharing things that they're like having to create a brand new PowerPoint presentation to create a brand new talk because they just don't share these things. These things aren't, you can't just Google search this stuff and YouTube search this stuff. This is stuff that's like, it's like really been secretive for a long time. So that's what the coaches conference is, reicoaches.com. It's going to be in Birmingham, Alabama, October 15th and 16th. We'd love to have you guys and love to have you.
I mean, I didn't know about it until we're talking, but you know, depending on my schedule, I've always wanted to go to Alabama. First of all, I've never been out there, so it'd be fun to come see you and check out in October. So yeah, I just have to check the schedule and
Check the schedule. Last year, Philip, we went to a football game. There was a group of us. We centered around a football. This year, obviously, things are a little bit different because of the pandemic. We don't even know if we're going to have fans. The SEC is playing football, and we are playing Georgia, who's like the number 3 team in the nation that weekend. So if people want, last year it was LSU. Last year it was number 1 versus number 2, Alabama LSU, and we had like 20 people go to that game that went to the coaches conference. So come to a football game. Come to the holy grail of college football.
Football. You're selling me with football because that division is like, we don't get that unfortunately in the West Coast. We just don't have the history that I don't know. I mean, ASU is a great campus, but they've never been able to build that legit program. Like, I don't know. I mean, we've been in and out of just the West Coast is a different brand of football for sure.
I saw a comment there. The young retire something. Woo Pig Suey. I've been to Arkansas. I've been to an Alabama Arkansas game. So I've been to football and basketball. So I don't have anything against Arkansas because we beat them every year. So
Yeah. So as far as what you're doing, what was that journey like, Brian? How did you? I mean, first of all, go all the way to Alabama from where are you from originally? Highland or
south of there. So Maryville. I'm sure you've heard of Maryville.
yeah, my grandma lived in Hobart. Like my
Yeah.
family dad had a automotive center in Gary, Indiana. So like,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, so just south of Maryville is Crown Point, and
yep.
then the next town south of Crown Point is Lowell, and that's where I
Oh,
went to. I went to Lowell High School. I'm from Lowell, Indiana.
that's pretty small town, right?
That's about 7,000,
Okay, okay.
or it was.
Man, yeah, Hebron. We used to drive through all those
Hebron.
small places. Yeah.
Yep, I lived in Hebron. That's where my mom still lives in Hebron.
Oh
Yep.
my God, that's crazy, crazy.
Yep.
So, I'll tell you, I love it. We still went every October because my parents still had the home that we went to kindergarten in. But this past year, they finally moved full time out to Arizona. But
Oh.
it was a great place to grow up. But I came out to ASU and never left.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So school
But
brought me.
yeah,
I don't know what took you out there to
school.
Alabama.
Yeah, I went to the University of Alabama. No real reason aside from I just wanted to get out of the cold, and my grandparents lived down here, and I'd visited here, and just moved back and wanted to go to school at Alabama. Since I was a sophomore in high school, I kind of made that decision. I really wanted to go to Alabama, and I hate, so as a Notre Dame fan, I hated Michigan really bad, and
Oh,
that's the story.
oh yeah, I
That
can't
that
say.
that's the story. The story is at the end of the 1996 season, on January 1st, 1997, Alabama played Michigan in one of the Florida Bowls. I think it was like the Gator Bowl or the Outback Bowl or something. And Alabama won 17-14. They beat Michigan. I was rooting for Alabama because I hated Michigan so much. And
Okay,
that was like the beginning of me becoming an Alabama fan, was
man,
that.
and you got
So I always wanted to
lot of history with
So I
Alabama.
always wanted to go to Alabama. I went to school there, graduated in '04, moved to Birmingham, bounced around. I coached Division I college basketball while I was here. Spent 2 years on a college bench, and found real estate. Found real estate in 2012. I went to a seminar, and they kind of got me hook, line, and sinker. And I learned wholesaling for the first time. Started wholesaling full time. Quit my job and started full time wholesaling in 2013, and did really well right off the bat, and built a pretty big business, probably the biggest wholesaling business in our area. And from there, I started teaching people how to do it, because I have an education, a master's in education. I have an education background. I wanted to learn how to teach people. I started a podcast, started REI Live. So I started our meetup group. We still have the largest RIA in the state of Alabama. Expanded it into other markets, and from there, I did a lot of creative deals. That's kind of my history as a real estate investor. Today, though I don't do any marketing, I'll probably only do 15 to 20 deals a year. Most of them are wholesale. Some of them are creative finance, but they're just little deals that just come to me through my network. I don't do any marketing. I intentionally and strategically build my network both locally and nationally for different things. Locally, obviously, I try to put deals together. I try to find buyers, and I try to find wholesalers, not sellers. Try to find wholesalers, much like Jameel does with Keegley. Try to find other wholesalers who already have deals, and I have buyers, and I just kind of match them together and do make middleman fees that way. I spend very little time on my real estate business. I can do it from anywhere. I've been traveling a lot this summer, so I just don't. I don't spend a lot. You talked about business, Brian. I don't spend a whole lot of time on business, Brian. The coaches conference and networking and things like that, I'll do that. I love that. But personal Brian and personal growth is probably something that I'm a lot more interested in these days, just because I made a lot of mistakes in the past, and I feel like there's much more to life than working 80 hours a week and being a slave to your business, which
Yeah,
I was, by the way, which I used to do.
and again, that's what we're kind of taught. Like you got to work to get what you want out of life. So I mean, we're ingrained that seeing your parents or whatever working. I saw my dad working 5 jobs, so I'm like, I just got to work. I mean, it's like I got to figure out how to not work 5 jobs and spend time with my children. So that's personally why I got into real estate, the flexibility, the freedom. I never missed a basketball game, gymnastics, volleyball. I volunteered at all their school events. I mean, anyone could ask them, and they're teenagers now, but like I wouldn't, I could never all the money in the world, I don't really care as long as I was able to be around them and uh, show that I'm there for their games. I'm, in the stands or coaching or whatever. And it's been a real blessing to create that. I pretty much designed it like you were speaking of, like 22 years ago. Like I knew I didn't want to work 5 jobs and never see the kids. So we're very close, and it's been,
Right.
it goes quick. It went very quick. So that's the blessing with, like you said. But you can't be like a slave to the business. That's because I've had streaks where I've gone many hours working, no sleep or whatever, and I got sick, and that's not the best thing either. So, but being a Hoosier, you're a basketball fan, it sounds like, too. So, Bobby Knight was the man back in the day.
Yep.
Delray Brooks, Scott Skiles, Steve Alford, all those guys.
Yep.
And I love basketball too. And
Yeah.
I obviously didn't coach at the collegiate level, but I'm very in tune with the local. We got some big programs out here. We got the prep schools, #1 prep school in the nation. I'm down there every day because my son, he trains with the trainer that works for that school, Hillcrest Prep. And, prior to pre-corona, we saw all the highlight, these guys from all around the country come to play there. So it's been a enjoyable ride. And I like the strategic aspect, Brian, of basketball, because what it teaches the kids. And we have one of the best coaches in the country that teaches my son. And he's like, just get the parents out, because the parents don't let the kids fail. Like, that's how the parents want it. It's like, no, these kids are 10, 15, 12, whatever. They got to make mistakes. So sometimes he just says, parents, see you later.
Yeah. Yeah. I coached AAU for a long time in that 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th grade kind of age ranges. That's how I got my start coaching. And you're right. I mean, parents are crazy. Parents can be very crazy and demanding and just ridiculous. So you have to get the parents out sometimes. I had one time where I had to tell during a game, parents were yelling at officials, and I had to turn around and say, basically, shut up, which is not a nice thing to say to someone. But I had to tell someone to, hey, zip it here, leave the officials alone. And parents can get pretty nuts. But coach basketball, you mentioned Steve Alford, Bobby Knight. I grew up going to Bob Knight basketball camp. Calbert Chaney was, my favorite player in the early 90s when I was going to Bob Knight basketball camp there. But basketball, at least the way the college game, I think the NBA for a long time has been more of a one-on-one kind of game, an isolated game, until they put in they had illegal defense for a long time until, I guess somewhat recently where you can go to a zone. But illegal defense meant you had to guard someone one-on-one. And you could come over and double team, but you couldn't just kind of be in between one guy and another guy. That's illegal defense. So the NBA was always like a one-on-one sport. I never really obviously I grew up in the 90s. I went to high school in the 90s, right outside Chicago. Obviously gigantic Bulls fan, gigantic Jordan fan. Of course I am. So but the college game has traditionally, maybe it's gone away from that a little bit today, but it's traditionally been a very team-oriented game. It's a pass-first game. Bobby Knight used to have the rule, forget what you think about him as a person, just as a basketball coach, Bob Knight had a rule of every single player had to touch the ball before a shot went up. All 5 players had to touch the ball. You had to space. You had to be 12 to 15 feet apart. If you're not 12 to 15 feet apart, you don't have good spacing. You can't get the defense to move, and you can't get a good shot anyway. So we're going to move the ball. We're not going to dribble. We're going to move the ball with passes, and we're going to get the defense to move, and we're going to create open shots. And that is a team-oriented basketball approach. And that's what I think you might have been alluding to there, is where that's why I love the game, the strategy in basketball of getting the defense to move so you can find open lanes to create open shots. Because at the end of the day, especially at a certain level, when you start playing, AAU at a certain level, or even obviously college basketball and even further, open shots is what beats you. If you can get an open shot, that is how you're going to win basketball games. And so if you can defend to where people aren't getting just wide open shots all day, but that's what we want to create on offense. We want to move the ball and be a team sport and move the ball to get the defense to move to create open shots, and that's how you're going to win.
100%. And I love the strategy, like you said. So it's interesting, Brian, because Coach Gabe, he's 30 years old, and he played over in Europe. And one of the things he emphasizes with the boys is your footwork. So he works on a lot of footwork with these kids. And I've seen that translation in my son going one-on-one, and he works with Landon, who's like a 6'7" freshman out here that's just he's like he wants to be Luka, but so he works with some of the top players in the state too. And so I go and watch him on Sunday because he's in a men's league, and it's him with some of the guys. And the thing I notice with them, it's not one-on-one, it's a strategic, team-oriented game. They're not the most skilled, but they're beating some of these other guys who are some of them are still in the European League, and they're beating these guys because they're moving the ball, they're sharing, it's a team. It's not, so you can't be that like one-on-one guy that's trying to beat everyone. It doesn't work.
And then you can translate that to business, right?
Yes.
You can translate that directly to businesses, because that's how my wholesale business was when I first got started. I didn't know any better. I didn't have anybody holding my hand. There weren't all these YouTube videos out. There might have been a couple of people, but there really was no help. And I know that you've been in the game for a long time. There's very little help probably when you got started as well. So I had to learn the hard way. I'm sitting here trying to be marketing guy, taking phone calls, acquisitions guy, going on appointments, locking up the deal, contacting my buyers, dispositions guy, being transaction coordinator, calling title companies and lining up, make sure I'm everybody. I'm wearing all the hats, and I'm playing a one-on-one game here. And basically, by the time you do well and make a $10,000 or $15,000 at the time, $10,000 wholesale deal for me in Birmingham in 2013 is enormous. Probably double the average here.
Wow.
Make a $10,000 wholesale deal, and it's just like, holy cow, man! I just worked my tail off for that thing, and now we got to do it again.
Right.
Now I got to do it again and keep doing it. Well, that's what I was doing. That's what I was doing for years. Is I was the guy, and eventually I hired some other people and didn't do it well, and created this massive, ridiculously large overhead business where we had TV ads going, radio ads, billboards, bandit signs, direct mail. I mean, we were doing anything and everything that you could think of back in 2014, 15, 16, into 17. And look, we were doing a lot of volume. We were doing a lot of business. But at the end of the day, I had such a huge overhead, and my deal margins were not as big as, definitely not as big as they are today. I just wasn't making a whole lot of money. I was making a ton of money on the top line.
Sure.
I was making a big number on the top line, but that bottom line revenue just wasn't what I thought it should be for me putting in all these hours.
Right.
It just didn't add up. So I had to completely reinvent my business in 2017 to where I did way less volume and just had an acquisitions guy and a VA and me. And that was my business. And we did maybe on average 3 deals a month. And I was making 4, 5, 6 times the net money I was making when I had this gigantic business.
That's so fascinating, Brian. So what changed? I mean, what made you change in 2017? Did you meet someone, or did you read something, or you were just like, man, this is insane. And,
it wasn't working.
Long run.
It wasn't working. I'm looking at my tax returns, and I'm just like, my wife, who was a pharmacist, did really well at the time, and before she quit her job, and I'm just like, she made more money than I did. I made 5 times the money, 6 times, 7 times the money she did gross, but net she made more money than me. How's that possible? I'm working twice the hours.
Man.
This doesn't make any sense. So it just didn't add up. And I did start to seek out people like Joe McCall, who became a really good friend of mine and a mentor. Guys like Peter Vexelman at that time, that was 2015. Start reaching out to people. What am I doing wrong? How can I tweak this? And just literally like giving me one nugget. I think Joe McCall, the first thing he did I hired him as a coach in 2015. The first thing he did was he sent me a book called The Pumpkin Plan, which I've got it on my shelf somewhere.
Okay.
But he sent me a book called The Pumpkin Plan. He's like, you need to figure this thing out first before you start doing all this other stuff. So just starting, just trial and error, just trying to learn. And I'd never really been in the guru world before. I never really hired a coach before. I felt like I was doing pretty well on my own, and just to be able to humble myself and say, you know what, I do need a coach. I do need someone to kind of help me figure this out. Like I'm making all this money, but I'm not taking anything home. It doesn't make sense. But I was also spending money at the time that I was considering a business expense. I was spending money on rentals. We were buying rentals at the
Okay.
time too. So it wasn't. I was making more money than maybe I'm letting on. But I still felt like I wasn't making the kind of money that I thought I should be making.
Right.
And we were reinvesting a lot into the business for sure.
Gotcha. So, that's one thing I always advise newbies or people that are just getting into it. Like, yeah, flips are great. I still do flips, in volume, but I have people running those because it's a job, it's a job, setting everything up, spending a lot of hours doing it. So I always look back and like I'm thankful, and I lost almost 95%, Brian, of the rentals in 2008 with that financial crisis. I lost everything I built for 10 years.
Wow.
So like heartbreaking. But the great thing is I figured out how to stay in the game. I ended up teaching Canadians how to invest in the U.S. and very fortunate. But like don't go out and spend your cash on fame. I mean, I'm frugal, but like I like nice things, but like my money goes into rental. Like I'm picking up different properties and hanging on to those because
Yeah.
there's the mailbox money. I mean, it's, we make a lot of money in wholesale fix and flip, but where are you going to are you going to reinvest it in the business and other things that make you money? Or are you going to go buy, nothing wrong with fancy cars or, fancy clothes if that's what you like, but like put it back into something that's going to grow long term, because 10 years goes quick.
Yeah.
It goes very quick.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. Well, listen, man, I've got 10 minutes left because I've got back to back podcasts today. I'd love to. Is there something that your audience really needs? Is there something? How can I provide the most value to your audience?
I would just ask this question, Brian. Two questions to end in. So you've been in it since 2012. You have done, successful at it. Is there any thing that you failed at that you would do differently today, telling a 18, 25-year-old guy just starting out, whether it's wholesale, creative finance, like from your advice, what would you have done looking back?
Slow down. That's probably the biggest piece of advice I'd give to someone who's younger, 18 to 25. I would say slow down. I think a lot of times we think at that age that time is of the essence, and I got to do this, and it's easy to compare yourself to other people.
Right.
Very easy to start comparing yourself. The only person you should ever compare yourself to is who you were yesterday. That's it. You should never play the comparison game of this guy has that, or they have this car or that house or whatever. Don't play that comparison game, because it's empty. The end result of that is emptiness. Okay,
Right.
it just is. And you can trust me and you can believe me, or you can go and mess up like I did. Because I actually had people tell me the same thing I'm saying now. They said these same words, and I ignored it. I let it go in one ear and out the other, and I went and found out for myself and made the same mistake. So you can choose that, and I understand that. I actually empathize with that. A lot of people out there that are just like, you know what, I appreciate that, Brian, but I'm going to do it my way, and that's how I was, and that's cool. If that's your mentality, there's nothing I can say or do to change that. But if I was 18 to 25 today trying to break into the business, I would go about it. Real estate is a business where you get rich very slowly, and if you try to speed up that curve, there are things that you can do to speed it up a little bit. But if you try to really kind of cut that curve, is that the name of this podcast?
Yeah, cut the curve. So meaning that you get tips from Brian or you get tips from Brent or Pace, and those tips, it's your choice to listen to them to so that you don't make the same mistakes that Brian or Flip made. So that's the purpose of the show.
Yeah. So you can there are strategic things that you can be taught that will help you cut the curve for sure. But to try to I think there's a difference between cutting a curve and cutting a corner. Okay. And I think what I did, I'll speak for myself, but what I've seen a lot of people do is to try to cut corners. They want it too
Yeah.
fast. They want success too fast. They see other people and they see the success that they're having and they want it for themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what is wrong is when you start cutting corners. You start doing things, start sacrificing, start doing things that you shouldn't have done. Reading a book like I already mentioned, Michael Michalowicz. Another one of his books is Profit First.
Yep.
Reading a book like that. Start
Yep.
reading. Start having like daily things that you do that are going to enhance you personally and business wise. If you're not reading pages a day, you're doing yourself a disservice. At 18 to 25, you could have told me that and I would have laughed at you.
Right.
But to read and read the right books, get in book clubs where you're reading the right books, find mentors, and it could be unpaid. Find people who are doing it in your market that aren't actually mentors or coaches in the beginning, and just ask them questions. Jumping on things like this, watch it. You
You're,
can do things like that. That's great, but don't cut corners.
yes.
Don't cut corners. Don't think that you can be rich tomorrow. Real estate, when done correctly, is not get rich quick. It's get rich very, very, very slowly. And if you try to make it get rich quick, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble. You're going to find yourself bankrupt. You're going to find yourself out of the business. You're going to find yourself back at your 9 to 5.
I love it. I love it, Brian. So again, foundation, like building a house, I'm not going to start at the roof, right? I got to learn all the stuff below the roof, like how to lay it, how to do all that. So again, you can't do stuff halfway. You got to fully do the best at whatever that skill is and progress slowly, because again, everyone wants it quick with instant gratification, Instagram, and it doesn't work. I mean, the best guys have been around the longest who have withstood the battles and, learned from the other people that have gone before them. And I've too since 2004, and my game changed completely once I met him, and it's changing now with technology and stuff. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's a lot of money is made, but like it's not easy. It's like if you want the long game, like you'll burn out on the short game. So finally, you said some great stuff. I really appreciate your time. There was a question, I forgot that, but finally, Brian, with this pandemic, everything happening right now, how do you feel it's changed your business? What are you seeing going forward with the lot? Because we do meetups too, and we started getting a ton of people, and it was going extremely well. We partner with Magnus Title, the largest title company in Arizona, and 4 months into it, and then we got shut down, and we're doing virtual meetups, and it's a bummer because it's just not the same.
It's not the same.
No. So how are you feeling with your business right now, with everything happening in real estate, with, REI, meetups, everything going on? Where do you see the next 6 months, 5 months?
Well, it's tough. We're going to do a meetup in September. It's going to be our first one back. We haven't done one since March. We did one early March before things kind of got shut down. We're going to go back. We have a local mastermind. We did that last month live.
Nice.
And we spaced out. We were in a big room. Our state has certain guidelines that we had to follow. And we did. And half of our attendees chose not to come. And I, look, I'm of the belief that I believe in limited government, limited power, whatever your political beliefs are, whatever. But I also believe that whatever your beliefs are, you should be able to have that unimpeded. So if your belief is, I don't want to come to a live event, or I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that, that's more power to you. I don't want to, I'm not going to force my way upon anybody. And I would hope that someone else wouldn't force their way upon me. But we are providing an option for you to watch it virtually, or you can come to the live event. Some people don't want to come to a live event yet, and they think it's too soon, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not wrong. That's your personal belief and your personal opinion. I respect that. And if you believe that, we're going to accommodate you, and we want to make it virtually, making virtual an option for you to come. But for the past 6 months, it's been tough. I mean, there's no other way to say it. We tried doing virtual, and it's absolutely not the same.
Yeah.
And some people are trying to say that, oh, this is just the way it's going to be. That's not true. Nothing. I'm a live events person. Okay.
100%.
Nothing will ever take the place of a live event. I don't care how virtual it is. And Tony Robbins did an awesome job on his thing that he did virtually. It is absolutely, without a doubt, not the same. It's not the same.
Yeah.
And you can't make the connections. You can't network the way that you can network with. You can't get the energy in the room. You can't look somebody in the eye and really get to know them. Really, it's just not the same. So live events, we're starting to go back in September, doing live events. Our big event, REI Coaches Conference, which is at reicoaches.com, is October 15th and 16th. We are providing a virtual option. So if somebody goes in and they want a ticket, look, it's going to cost us a lot of money to get professional camera equipment in there and have people like manning the virtual, different networking rooms and things like that. So, but at no additional cost, you can come to the REI Coaches Conference from right there in the comfort of your own home. It is not the same. I'd rather you be here live.
Yep.
But if you feel like you can't be here live, but you still want to get some great, incredible content and meet some incredible people, we still have that option.
Awesome. Hey, brother, I know you're busy. I'm busy. I learned a ton. I really appreciate you. And I'm glad we connected, and definitely want to stay in touch with you.
For sure.
So have a blessed day out there, and we'll definitely be in touch, and be well.
Awesome, man. Thank you for having me on the show. I really do appreciate you. Best of luck to you.
All right, brother. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.